I want to just wish everyone a good evening and hope your first couple days of practice have gone well. My name is Dan Scavone. I serve as the boys lacrosse CIAC staff liaison, and I work with the boys lacrosse committee directly. Tonight we have Steve Hinchy, who is our state rules interpreter, with us to provide you with this year's 2025 rule interpretation meeting. Just before I turn it over to Steve, just a couple announcements. Number one, hopefully all of you, I attached the sports packet to my original email to you. Hopefully you get a chance to read it, share that with assistant coaches as well. You need to be very familiar with that packet, both for in-season purposes as well as the postseason. It has a lot of information pertaining to the tournament in particular, but also some of the changes that have occurred for the regular season. And one of them I do want to talk about, and that is the new policy regarding the disqualification of coaches. So this year in the fall, we instituted with the Board of Control approval, it was a proposal by the Sportsmanship Committee that elevated the consequences for coaches being DQ'd. Past couple of years, it was 2-game suspension. Now that still stands, a 2-game suspension, but also a requirement to take 2 3-hour NFHS sportsmanship courses, as well as a $50 fine. So all those 3 areas have to be covered before coach can return to the field. It's had some good positive effects. DQs with coaches has been down in the fall and the winter. Not to the point where we'd like no DQs. And in the fall in particular, we had some, particularly with assistant coaches. So you want to make sure you go over this with your assistant coaches. We often see sometimes assistant coaches who are new, really don't know the communication protocols when it comes to working with officials, and they get themselves into a little bit of trouble sometimes. So please talk that over with your assistant coaches. The DQ policy with our student athletes has remained the same. So it's still a 1-game suspension.
Situation to a rule we're trying
at this point, At this point, I really don't have any other new announcements other than I will say that for our finals this year, the location has changed from Sacred Heart University for a 1-year hiatus, and Sacred Heart is going under a major renovation with Campus Field. So this year, on June 14th, the finals will take place at Newtown High School. So just keep that in mind. Newtown High School will be our host for this 1 year as Sacred Heart renovates their stadium. And we'll be back at Sacred Heart in 2026. Okay, having said that all, I'd like to introduce Steve Hinchy, who is our state rules interpreter. He will give a presentation using an NFHS PowerPoint. This will be recorded as well, so you can go back to refer to it at any time. It's posted on the boys' main lacrosse page of our CIAC website, and that should be posted in a day or two. So Steve, take it from here.
Thank you. Hi, coaches. Welcome to 2025. Fortunately, we do not have a significant number of rule changes. These are more clarifications that we're going to go over. So I have just one taken in a particular order here. Before we start, there were some editorial, the rule book gets printed and they find out they misprinted something, and I'm going to just share that with you now. Can we see that? Rules book corrections. So these are corrections to the rule book. I'll go through them briefly. They're more, if you were to look in your rule book at page 3, it talks about rule changes. 211 was not listed in the rule changes. And that's just really clarifying equipment issues with the goalkeeper in warm-up. So it's just really referring to rule 2111. The next one was 55H, which was eliminated, was put in there. It really isn't a rule correction or clarification. The error was they were really putting in Rule 542, which is a penalty situation. We'll get to that when we go through the rule changes. Page 36 talks about, in this particular situation, 453 situation A, talks about a flag down being an immediate whistle. The rule change this year, we'll go through it again, but a shot or a loose ball, a pass, is not a loose ball. It's considered possession for the purposes of a slow whistle. So if we have a pass or a shot and we have a penalty situation, the flag goes down, but it'll be a slow whistle situation. The book mistakenly put immediate for this particular situation. And the last one is page 50. It's a situation, page 50 is a situation 419.5B. And it talks about a goalkeeper making a save. He's legally checked back into the crease. And it says, while A1 is in possession of the ball, well, the situation started out with B1 in possession of the ball, and it should be B1 still has possession of the ball instead of A1. That was a typo. So those are that's great. We only have those few corrections. Let me just get to the page now for the rules, and we'll go through that. All righty, so let me do the slideshow here, and we can all see this, okay. There's some pages here I'm going to go through. This is the National Federation of High School Boys Lacrosse rule change. This is a meeting that they hold, a Zoom meeting from Indianapolis, and it has an amount of slides here that I'm going to go through very quickly for you. But these are the rule changes. So let's go through the rule changes. The field. So you remember a few years ago, we had a field where the substitution area was 10 yards long on either side. Now it's back down to 5 yards the way it's been traditionally. But we still have these additional lines on many fields that are put on. So taking advantage of that, the Federation just relabeled and redefined the area. So our substitution box or substitution area is the area that's 5 yards either side of midfield. That's marked with cones. And then you have another 5 yards where there's another line. That's considered the coach's area. That is a coach's area that extends into the coach's area in front of the team area. That's for coaches only. There's no players there of any kind. There's no one else except coaches and assistant coaches. And that's the position that they can use for guiding substitutes, putting substitutes in, and talking to players on the field as they need to coach. So this, it's not a change. It just more clearly aligns the definition of the areas. Very important. Let's keep our teams behind the coach's area, and they should be really 10 yards to the left or right of midfield. They should not be anywhere near the table area. This actually does give us a better view for the table personnel so that they can see the action going on the field. This is a rule regarding player equipment, okay? So last year they put the helmet rule in. If the helmet is dislodged, we have a protocol for following that. The player has to leave the field until the next dead ball situation. The team who's in possession will keep possession. If it was a loose ball, then it would go to an alternate possession. However, what's clarified here is the chin strap. The chin strap is to be worn on the chin, not under the chin. The chin is the intersection of the front of your face and the underside of your jaw. It comes to a kind of a point. That is the chin, and that is where the cup of the chin strap is supposed to be. And that's the definition of how it will be worn correctly, the way the manufacturer intended it. So officials will be checking for this. It needs to be on the chin and secure 4 points. When it's secure this way, the helmet does not come off during play. Facing off, 431 exceptions. There's nothing that's changed here except that if we have just clearing the definitions of when a face-off will not occur. We know those rules basically. If we have a violation before the face-off, then the ball is awarded. If we ended a period where there was an EMO situation or an EMO situation would be created for the next period, and a team has possession of the ball, they would be awarded the ball and there would not be a face-off. Those are really the only, it's just clarifying when there won't be a face-off. And it's usually when you have those kind of rule violations. Checking with lacrosse. No change. What they did was they just rewrote the rule and listed ABC, what you can do as far as a player checking the cross. This is the way the rule has always been. The player who's checked must have possession of the ball. It's only the player who has possession can be checked with a cross. Or if we have a loose ball, you need to be within 5 yards of a loose ball or 5 yards of a ball that's in flight. Keep in mind, we're not calling a ball in flight necessarily a loose ball for enforcement of penalties, but it's always been a ball in flight is going to be treated like a loose ball, and there can be a stick check. That's the way the rule has been enforced for years. Restarts. The only thing that's been added or clarified here is restarting near the substitution area. Now, in Connecticut for years, what we've done is we brought the players in for 5 yards. Unfortunately, it's not been consistently done, or coaches are looking for a quick restart, and before you know it, we blow the whistle, and the player is started really from the sideline. And that puts them at risk if there's players in the substitution area or penalty area. So we're just clarifying the rule that in between the two cones, the ball will be brought in 5 yards. This way, we do not have the potential risk of a 5-yard violation. If you train your players that when they're in that area, just to really move in 5 yards, they can still get their quick restart. But the officials have been directed and will delay play if they have to, so that they get the players in 5 yards. Usually, officials are trying to point to the area to give your player a direction, but you can train them also in practice. That's the only change with a restart. Officials' timeouts. This is really, this is around equipment, losing mandatory equipment. There's a change in definition in terms of scrimmage area. I'll go over that in a moment. But if a player loses mandatory equipment in the scrimmage area, there's going to be an immediate whistle. We're treating this the same way as we treat a helmet that's lost. It doesn't matter how the equipment was lost, whether it was legal, illegal, it's lost. We're going to have a whistle, and then we're going to enforce any penalty as we have to by the rule as they've already been written. This is really when we're going to blow the whistle. If we have a shot in progress with the loss of mandatory equipment, the official is going to withhold his whistle so that the player doesn't lose the possible scoring of a goal. All right, this is 542, 545. This is the checks to the head and neck. There was some confusion last year. There was some inconsistent calling of penalties the way it was intended. Checks to the head or neck come in 3 varieties. The indirect check, which is either a body check or a possible cross check that starts at the body below the neck but ends up above the neck, either into the neck or the head. That's called an indirect contact. That penalty this year is going to be a minimum 1-minute non-releasable penalty. Last year, because it ended up in the head, penalties of 2 minutes were being called. It's clarified now. If it's an indirect hit, it's a 1-minute penalty, but it is non-releasable. If there was any violence with it, as it was, even though it was indirect, it could be a 2 or a 3-minute penalty, but the minimum penalty will be 1 minute. If the penalty is directly to the head or neck, that penalty will be a 2-minute non-releasable penalty. And if it's more violent, it could be a 3-minute. If we have what's called targeting, the player goes directly and with some violence to the head or to the neck with a body check or a cross check, that will be a 3-minute non-releasable possible ejection foul. So we have an indirect, we have a direct with no violence, and we have a targeted. And each one has a non-releasable penalty. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When we talk about the defenseless player, any defenseless player violation is going to be a 2-minute non-releasable penalty. The defenseless player is one who's in the process of scooping the ball and is checked by his opponent. A player who's airbound and when he lands, he's checked. a player who is has his back to his opponent, and when he turns, he's given that violent check. Those are the defenseless players checks. They will be a minimum 2-minute non-releasable. Slow whistle situation. The only clarification here is that if we have a shot or a pass when a foul occurs and there's a flag thrown, the official will use the slow whistle situation. He will not blow the whistle immediately. He will allow the pass to continue. He will allow the shot to continue to its ending before blowing the whistle, using the usual slow whistle technique for adjudicating the play. Correction of errors. The only change here with the correction of errors is that any kind of, on a face-off, if we have any kind of inadvertent whistle, we're going to reface. We're not going to use alternate possession. So if the official blows the whistle for some reason and it was erroneous and it shouldn't have been blown, we're simply going to reface so that really no team is put at an advantage or disadvantage using the alternate possession. Okay. Points of emphasis. Well, here it is. It's still here. It's not going away. The eye shade rule. It's unfortunate that even last year we had improvements in that rule, but still inconsistent in terms of the enforcement. We really need you as coaches to be enforcing this rule, if nothing else, for ethical concerns. This is the rule. This is the way it should be called. And we all need to be working as a team to educate the players as to why we're doing, what we need to do and why we're doing it. This is the rule. It's across the board in Federation rules, and it's still here. And we ask for your cooperation in helping the officials enforce this rule. The properly worn chin strap. Okay, we talked about that. It's the chin strap. It's going to be on the chin, not under the chin, and not under the nose. It's on the chin. That's the way it's to be worn. If it's not worn that way, it's illegal equipment and it will be enforced as an illegal equipment penalty. Non-releasable, 1 minute. The scrimmage area. So the scrimmage area has always been the area that was 5 yards around the ball. Keep in mind, this game is a ball-centric game, so that any of our interactions between checking, between penalty enforcement and stuff, it tends to be around the ball. So roughly 5 yards. And we'll emphasize the word roughly, because depending on the situation, it may not be a perfect 5-yard circle around the ball or the player with the ball. It could extend a little bit if we're in the near the goal crease area, near a line, midfield line, sideline. There could be some extension of what we'll call the scrimmage area. So that any interaction that we have, particularly loss of equipment as the major example, if it's not within the scrimmage area, it's not going to be an immediate whistle. Okay, so you got a player that's running at midfield, running to the midfield line to cross into its attack area, and a player back near the goal area has lost his equipment. We're not going to be blowing the whistle for that. Okay, a player that's injured. Well, obviously injuries we've got to look at, but if a player is injured but looks like he's recovering, we're not going to necessarily blow the whistle for that. We want the action to kind of continue. And again, I emphasize, if we have an injured player, we will stop them for the injury, okay? But a judgment needs to be made how it may be affecting the play or if the player can recover. But keep in mind, this is the definition of a scrimmage area. When we're talking about checks, particularly loose ball checks, ball in the scrimmage area when the ball is in the air, okay, for shots, for passes, those kinds of enforcements. Those are the rules of interference. Those are the rules of slashing. Those are the rules of checking that will usually be affected by the scrimmage area. The new field diagram, which we showed at the beginning, just want to make sure you, it's a point of emphasis in terms of clearly defining where players should be, where coaches should be, where substitutes should be, and where penalized players should be. We've talked about the unintentional, intentional checking. Okay, the unintentional again that ends up at the head or neck will be a 1 minute non-releasable. Someone who initiates a check and hits the head or the neck area, that will be 2 minutes. And if it was really targeted, that'd be the 3-minute non-releasable. Keep in mind, if there's a little more violence in any of these checks, they could be escalated to 2, 3, and possible ejection. We're talking about the minimum number. Okay, apparently they're going to change the authentication mark on the balls. So this is a kind of a gradual procedure, so don't worry about it. As long as your game balls have the NFHS logo or name on them, they will be legal balls for this year. They they are slowly they're asking the manufacturers to now use a new logo, so that'll be coming in, and they have a date when it's targeted to be kind of the final offer. But if you have the NFHS logo, you're okay with your ball. And that's all I have. I did have one additional comment to make that was coming from officiating boards. Just keep in mind that the game, the recommendation for officials on the game is 3-man for varsity. And so that many games are done with 2 officials, and that's been done traditionally for years, and it continues to be done. But what we're inviting you as coaches is to look at some of your schedule and your contest and see if there is games that perhaps a third official is warranted. It could be a tough game, a rivalry game. There may be a reason that you might want a third set of eyes to help make sure that we have a fair, safe contest. Look at your schedules, take a look, discuss it with your AD, and contact the assigning authorities for your area if you feel that you need or would like to have that done for you as far as the third official. So that is all I have here for you. If there are questions, I'd be happy to entertain questions. I would just add one more reminder. So they look for rule changes, but it's interesting that the rule changes need to be submitted almost by the end of April. We've barely gotten into our schedule and playing games, but any kind of rule changes that are considered need to be sort of submitted either to me. You could submit them to me, you could submit them to Dan, or to the NFHS by the end of April. They then collate them in May, and then they get them prepared for when they meet in June. But if you feel there's a rule change that needs to be made, a clarification that needs to be made, feel free to drop me a note if you wish, and we can discuss it and go through it. If enough people are interested, I would certainly on your behalf submit that to the Rules Committee. With that,
Yeah, and Steve, we would have to get approval from our state first before that would go national. So
correct. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but we need to, what I'm saying is we need to collate that stuff before
yeah,
anything.
I just don't want them to be confused that they can submit it. It has to be
No,
submitted through the state association. Yes,
through the CIAC.
correct.
Yes, sir.
Just Travis Salke here, Xavier High School.
Yes,
we're
sir.
hearing the total opposite. Not that it might matter to you right now on the youth level, is in regards to iBlock. We're told that iBlock is okay, so it's difficult for maybe the kids to get adjusted to being told one thing at the youth level, 7th and 8th grade, and then coming into high school and being told something different. So I'm not sure.
The CIAC follows the Federation rules, and the rules as written, there's no eye shade. I mean, why it's at the youth level, it's just it's disappointing that it is at the youth level. Very disappointing, but you're going to have to re-educate your players when they come and play high school lacrosse. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I plan to get further clarification when I go to Chicago, Steve, on that.
Yep.
When I go to the lacrosse committee meeting, just to see where the rest of the country is with that, if they're having difficulty with that, and if the federation is looking to make any changes in the future with that.
Yes, I've been in contact with some of the powers to be and asking the same question, and I get not yet is the answer, and so I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. So we're just asking. Let's. It's this is a form of discipline. Also, is one way to look at it with your teams. That they conform, that they wear the appropriate equipment, that they use it the proper way, and that they dress accordingly. So, show their efforts on the field. All right.
Any other questions for Steve? I don't see any. Let me check chat for you, Steve.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, Toby McDonald from Holy Cross. Can you just clarify the quality and coloration of mouth guards for this upcoming season? Because I had some issues last year with that.
As you know, I'm a dentist. This rule drives me crazy. They are not to be clear and they're not to be white. Okay. This is what I would recommend for you. If someone's coming in with a clear mouth guard, I mean, as much as we would like to have them, not having clear, use a black magic marker and color it up, put some ink on it or something like that. But let me just read from it. Okay. It can't be completely white and it can't be completely clear. Okay. Can't be complete. We must be able to see the mouth guard in the mouth, and white is difficult to see. Clear is definitely difficult to see. So that if you just, you put a black mark on it, put some kind of color in there. Okay. Use a non-toxic ink, but, if they were to dip it in food coloring, okay, that's going to change the color of their mouth guard. Again, it's a matter of discipline. It's a matter of just, doing the right thing because we do have the rule that's here. I know it's detail stuff that you as head coaches have to work with. But we also talk about details being, critical in games. So it's the best I can tell you. If it's going to be clear, it's going to be white. For the most part, if it's going to be white, I'm not sure you're going to hear a lot. We just want to make sure our mouth guard is in the mouth, but we do have a rule that needs to be enforced.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, I appreciate the question. Thank you, too.
If there's no other questions, one of the questions in the chat, will the
Yes.
girls follow, yes or no? That might have been a typo. The girls' rules committee meeting is tomorrow night. And,
Okay. Gentlemen, I wish you well for the season. I'm excited for you, and may your games be good.
Everyone have a great season. If you have any questions during the season, you could email, if you need a rule interpretation, you can feel free to email Steve at any time.
Yes.
Have a great year, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, man.